Hello guys, welcome to my channel, the Mini Soft Tech. Today we are going to discuss about the accelerated database recovery, that is the ADR. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so this is the agenda. Okay, so we are going to cover all these topics. Okay, so first is agenda is like overview of overview of accelerated database recovery, managing the ADR considerations and demonstrations. Okay, so we are going to cover in detail each topics. Okay, so first we are going to check what is the accelerated database recovery. Okay, so accelerated database recovery is a new feature in SQL Server that is introduced in SQL Server 2019. So you can say that it is an enhancement to the SQL Server database engine recovery process. Okay, especially for the long running transactions. So it is a new feature that was introduced in SQL Server 2019, and in Azure it is by default it is enabled, but in our the normal SQL servers it is not enabled by default. So if you want to leverage the feature of the ADR, then we have to enable it. Okay, so some of the features are like for the ADR is fast and consistent database recovery. Okay, so when we say that fast and consistent database recovery, then what does it mean? It means that you might have observed that when the large running transactions, or you can say that the long running transactions are running, and due to some reason if the SQL server is restarted, or if you have to kill the process, okay, so it takes the same amount of time when the transactions was completed. So for example, if there is a transactions which takes to complete 4 hours or 5 hours, and if 2.5 hours is already completed and SQL server is restarted, okay, so when this SQL server is restarted, and when it comes back, so it will take minimum 2.5 hours to recover again, or it may take longer than that, or it may be the double time. Okay, because the recovery goes each and every transaction to transactions, and that is the reason it takes longer time. Also, you might have observed that when you run the index, okay, command, or any long running transactions, and if you kill the process due to some reason, okay, so it takes a long time to roll back. The same thing as we discussed in the first point. So if 2.5 hours is already completed, and if it is restarted, or if you kill the process, it will take minimum 2.5 hours, or even it may be the 5 hours. Okay, so instant transaction rollback means when you are going to kill the transactions, and if you have enabled the ADR, immediately the transactions will be aborted. Okay, and that will be logged into the PVS table. Okay, so you can track that what are the transactions that has been the rollback. So in that case it is immediately, and all the logs are released immediately. Aggressive log truncations, what does it mean? It means that when as soon as the checkpoint runs, the logs are truncated. Okay, minimizes the transition log space. Okay, so how it minimizes the transition, the transition log space, because it creates the snapshot of each transactions, okay, in the previous table, and as soon as the transactions are completed, okay, so as soon as transactions are completed, or if any transactions are reverted, so it has a the snapshot in the previous table, so it redirects you to the snapshot. Hey, read the data from here. Okay, and by that way it is not growing the log. Okay, and why the log is not growing? Because if the transactions are running, and whenever the the checkpoint occurs, the logs are truncated. So you can see that in the earlier third, option here, aggressive log truncation. So as soon as the transactions are completed and checkpoint runs, okay, the log files are deleted. That is truncated. So that's why it does not allow the log to grow for a, to take a, more space because the logs are getting truncated. And that's why we save a lot of space. Okay, so I hope this is clear to you. Means what are the features, you can say that, or what are the capabilities of the ADR. Okay, why and when to use ADR, right? So if you are having a very small databases, so you might not have the problem of the database is taking longer time to recover and all. Okay, so it is mostly useful for the the very long running transactions, or the long the very big databases, the sizes which has a very big in size, it may be in TB, 2 TB or 10 TB, like that. Also, if there is a significant transaction log growth, if you have observed the log files are growing frequently, so in that case you can use the ADR. Okay, so third point is frequent long recovery after server restart or crash. So as we discuss here in this point, when the SQL server is restarted, it takes a longer time for the database to recover. So the answer is same when there is a long running transactions. So while recovery also it will take a long time. But if it is a ADR, it will the recovery is very fast. That is called as the instantaneous you know transaction rollback. Okay, so we are going to cover more in next slides. Okay, so here you can see that I have given two diagrams. One is with ADR and another one is without ADR. Okay, so here it is with ADR and here it is without ADR. Okay, so before jumping to the without ADR and with ADR, just we are going to discuss what are the ARIS model and what are the current recovery process. Okay, so you can see that in our environment we have the three phases of database recovery model. First is analysis phase. Scan the log from last checkpoint. Redo phase, scan forward from oldest uncommitted transactions. Scan backward to oldest uncommitted transactions. Okay, so what does it mean? So you can see here, this is the recovery model. Okay, transaction log without ADR. So in the analysis phase, what it does, you can see here the last checkpoint. So when the last checkpoint occurred, the analysis will run, and it will prepare the the dirty page table. Okay, and also it will prepare the active page table, and from the last checkpoint it will prepare the data. Okay, so it will not only, okay, when the analysis phase is prepared, then it goes with the the redo phase. Redo phase is nothing but the roll forward. Okay, so when it is going for the roll forward, it will still the checkpoint has occurred here. If you see that the checkpoint has occurred here, it will go to the oldest uncommitted transactions which was active at that point of time. So as you see that in the first phase, I told you analysis phase, it will present the dirty page table and active table. Okay, so active table is nothing but the oldest uncommitted transaction when the transactions were running at the point of the SQL was crashed or restarted. Okay, so that is the reason instead of check from the last checkpoint, okay, it is going back to the oldest uncommitted transactions. Okay, and then it will check from here and bring the database at the time when it was active at the point of recovery, at the point of crash. So that is called the redo phase, and it will roll forward the committed transactions. Okay, now the next point is undo phase. Undo for means, you can say that the rollback. You scan backward to the oldest uncommitted transactions. Okay, So you can see here, this is the end of the log. Okay, so from the last checkpoint has occurred here, but if you see that from end of the log, still the checkpoint has occurred, it will go back to the oldest uncommitted transactions. Okay, and whatever the transactions, okay, that are not committed, it will do the rollback. And the rollback, it goes by the log by log for each and every records it will go, and it takes a longer time. Okay, so that is the reason whenever the database is crashed, it takes so much time to come up. Okay, now we are going to understand what is the difference in the ADR and without ADR. So here you can see that the recovery phase is same. Here also you can see the recovery phase is same. Okay, it goes through the analysis phase, redo phase, and the undo phase. Okay, so what is the difference? So difference here is there is one more. The log is called the secondary log. Okay, or you can say as the log stream. So one more log stream is created, and that is whatever, as you know that in why it is fast, why it is ADR is fast, because it creates the snapshot of the transactions, and each and every row, you can say that, so row basis. So whatever the transactions we are going to read, the row basis, the transactions are, the snapshot is created in the PVH table. Okay, and that is the reason when the rollback occurs, okay, when the rollback occurs, okay, it presents the whatever there was in the previous table, it is brought back. Okay, so that is the reason. So current transaction is aborted, and backward whatever the snapshot was created, it replaces the same. So that is the reason log is not increasing. Okay, and the recovery is fast. Okay, so what does it goes in the log, secondary log? Okay, so in secondary log, whatever the databases or transactions which cannot be versioned, okay, for which version cannot be created, that logs goes into the secondary log. Okay, so secondary log or non-version transactions, like the schema level changes or database level changes, that are not the versions, so that kind of things goes into the secondary log. Okay, and that may be the very few, right? That may be the very few. So that's why it is showing here 2 3 transactions are coming. So secondary log, it follows the same process as the legacy process. Okay, even the checkpoint here, it will go till here. Okay, and in also in this case of the undo phase, it will come from here to here, you can see here. So now what is the difference? So this secondary log is only for the non-versioned the transactions, but the normal process, okay, like a redo and undo phase, so here you can check that, see that the last checkpoint has occurred here. Okay, so when your SQL server is going to restart, it will read the data from here only. You can see this here, read the data from here only. Okay, and whatever the transactions that were not committed, or it was dirty at the point of server was restarted, it will roll forward. So this much area of the transactions will be aborted. So it doesn't not, it's not going to consider what was the state of that their transactions, because it was not committed, and it will check for the last checkpoint. Same thing happens in the the undo phase. So it will check the last checkpoint here, and from here to here. So what after the last checkpoint, whatever transactions which were not committed, okay, it will do the it will do the rollback. So only it has to roll back this much transactions, because the last checkpoint has occurred here. So it will not go from here to here. Okay, so it will not go from here to till here. Okay, so that is the difference. So I hope you got what is the the difference between this one. So only the secondary log, that is either non-version transactions which are at the schema level changes or at the database level that is not logged, and that is called as the non-versions, and that transactions are very less. So that's why. And also when the checkpoint is occurred, the transactions are truncated, so it will not have a very big log file and all. Okay, so that is how it is managed. One is secondary log and one is primary log. So primary log, here it is going to read this much only data and this much only the rollback. So that's why it is fast. And why it is so? Because it is using the snapshot model. Okay, so it creates a snapshot, but it does not create the snapshot in the temp database. It creates a snapshot in the same table, in the same database. That's why it is fast. And PVS means persistent version store. Persistent version store means which remains there. So as soon as the SQL is restarted, so in earlier TempDB was also when restarted the snapshot goes away, but here it will be there. Okay. So here you can see that whatever we discussed now, ADR components. So one is persistent version store, so that we discuss. So row versions are stored in the DB itself instead of TempDB. So in earlier we have seen that the versions were stored in the TempDB. Okay, but now all the versions, even if you have enabled the snapshot, okay, it will be stored in the database itself. It will not go to the TempDB. Okay, PBS enables resource isolation and improves availability of readable secondaries. Okay, so as you know that the the snapshot is created. Okay, so snapshot is created and it is stored in the PBS. Okay, so data can be when the request comes up, it will read the data from the PBS. Okay, so by that way, the you know improves availability of the readable secondaries. So mostly when if you have the AG, so in that case it is very good to use that the secondary replica for to read the data. Logical revert. Okay, so here you can say that asynchronous row level version based undo. Asynchronous. Okay, so it does not mean that, it means that it is not synchronizing continuously. So it is row level. Okay, so each row, as we discussed earlier, each row is versioned in the previous table. In the previous, here you can see each row versioned in the previous. Okay, that's why it is called as row level version based undo. So each row is getting versioned one, two, like that, whatever the transactions you can say that are row level. So that's why when one transaction, okay, that is not committed and it's cancelled, so the rollback is very fast. So that is the reason it is very fast. So it will not go from beginning to end as we discussed in the earlier slide. Keep track of all aborted transactions. So once you cancel the query or if you kill the queries, okay, the transactions will be aborted. Instead of going for the rollback, transactions will be aborted and it will be saved in the PBS table. Releases all logs immediately after transaction abort. So earlier we have seen that when you kill the process, it used to go for the rollback. But here, if you kill the process, immediately all the logs will be they released, and that aborted will be transactions will be marked as aborted. Okay. Now we have the secondary log that we discussed earlier. So it is in-memory log stream for non-version operations. So it remains in the in-memory log stream. Okay, for non-version operations. Persisted on disk during the checkpoint process. So when the checkpoint runs, the data is written to the disk and the logs are truncated. So here we say the critical truncation as transactions commit. So as soon as the transactions are committed, okay, the logs are deleted. Accelerates redo and undo by processing only the non-version operations. Okay, so secondary log means whatever the non-version operations goes in, by that way it has to read the couple of the transactions only at the time of crash. It will not go to read and each and every transactions. It will read only the non-versions operations. Enables aggressive transaction log truncating by preventing only the required logs records. So as soon as the transactions are committed, logs are truncated. Okay. So last component is cleaner. Asynchronous periodic cleanup outdated page versions. Okay, so like we have seen the lazy writer, how lazy writer works, and it makes sure that there are certain spaces available in the previous table. So in the sorry, so it makes sure that there are sufficient space on the buffer pool. But in cleaner also, what it does is it runs periodically, okay, and checks that there is a sufficient space on the previous table, okay, and if there are any outdated transactions, outdated pages that is not required, so it will flush that pages, it will clear out that pages. So it does not mean that we cannot run the command to clear. We have the command that we can run manually and we can clear the pages. Okay, so I hope you understood what are the components of the ADR and how it is fast. So these are the main components. Okay, now the managing ADRs. So ADR is off by default in SQL 2019. Okay, but it is enabled by default in Azure. Enabled and managed by DDL operations. So by default, you should have the the data definition level language, DDL permissions to enable the ADR. PBS can be and should be stored in a specific file. Okay. So by default, if you are going to enable the ADR, by default it will be stored in the primary file group. But you can create, and it is recommended to create a additional file group, okay, and then enable the previous table into that. So that will be very easy to track how much space is growing. Okay. So now we have PBS must maintain sufficient space. So yeah, so if you are going to enable the the ADR, we should have sufficient space on the drive, because PBS will also occupy some space. Okay, so we can check the ch.dm tran persistent version store stats, means what the status of the persistent version is store. Okay, so it will show you how much space are available. Okay, and if you run this command ch.persistent version cleanup, okay, so this is nothing but a SP. So if we execute this the store procedure, it will clean up the space available in the previous table. Okay, so now we have the ADR considerations. So it means that when and how we have to go for the ADR. So while enabling, what are the things that we should consider? So first one is we should have sufficient space for version store. It cannot be enabled for express editions. User databases only. It means that we cannot use for the enable the ADR for the system databases. The reason is very simple, because the system databases are very small in the size. Okay, required exclusive access to DB to enable. So you should be having the administrative permissions to enable the ADR. Also, it do not support in mirroring. So ADR cannot be enabled in mirroring. So these are the considerations that you should check before enabling the ADR. Okay. So let's jump to the the demonstrations of setup and manage ADR, observe basic rollback. Okay, so let's jump to the ADR, the demo. Okay. Okay, let's go to the SQL server. So here you can see that I have already the uh, updated some commands, okay, that we are going to see. Okay, so let me run this command, okay, and see what happens. So the ADR is not enabled for this table bank, okay, and we are going to see how much time it is taking to update, and then we will do the rollback. Okay, So let me run this command. It may take some time. So I'm pausing the video and will enable again once it is, the command is executed. Okay guys, so we can say that the transaction is completed and it take around 4 minutes 44 seconds. So we can see that without ADR, okay, it took around 4 minutes 44 seconds. Okay, minutes. And now we are going to see how much time it is going to take the rollback. So as we discussed in the earlier, okay, that it may take the minimum 4.4 minutes or it may take double of these new transactions. Okay, so I'm just going to run the command rollback and let's see how much time it takes. Okay, so it may take minimum 4 to 5 minutes minimum, or it may take also 8 minutes. So let's see how much it is taking time. I will resume the video once it is transition is completed. Okay guys, so you can see that the rollback has taken around 9 minutes 4 seconds. So here I'm just putting it down, 9 minutes 4 seconds. Okay, so this is how much time it is taking. Okay, now we are going to run the same command, okay, after enabling the ADR. So here you can see that, you know we have tested and there is no ADR. You can see that. Now we are going to enable the ADR. ADR is enabled. You can see here. Alright, it is enabled. And now I'm going to run the command to see how much time it is going to take, and then we'll do the rollback. Okay, so I'm pausing the video. Once it is completed, we'll enable it again. Okay guys, so we can see that, after enabling this, the ADR, it took around 4 minutes 14 seconds. Okay, so here I'm just going to type with ADR. It took to complete 4 minutes 14, no, 4 minutes 4, sorry, 4 minutes 14 seconds. Okay, so 4.14 seconds, minutes. Okay, so now we are going to do the rollback. Okay, see. Okay, so here we have the rollback and let's see how much time it takes to complete. Okay, so you can see that it took around 0 seconds, not even the less than the second also the transition is completed. Okay, so it did not go for the rollback and transition is completed. Okay, so that is how you can see that how fast this ADR is working. Okay, yeah, so that's it guys. I think you got some idea how it works. Okay, so guys, if uh, feel that the video is really useful and you have some learning, then please subscribe to my channel. Hit the like button, subscribe to my channel for forthcoming videos. Thank you. Thanks a lot.